and then went with it, went with that design, and then was encouraged to from TEACCH to really give a talk and continue to develop them. So
and I did have a parent mention earlier to me today, like she said, I don't have any shoe boxes, and I said, you don't have to use a shoebox.
No.
Okay, so that will be mentioned.
we'll go around. Initially I wanted to just show a very basic setup.
Sure.
And then we'll go around the shop. We're in the shoebox shop now.
Oh my gosh, I would go nuts there. Where is that?
No.
We're in Asheville.
I went, when I was a teacher in Asheville, I actually went to a make and take session at the TEACCH Center, and it was like, it was pretty magical.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I've always been really fascinated by this population, and really up to the challenge to try and get to see where a particular kid might get hung up, and then what I can do to replace myself to get them to be able to do whatever it is they're trying to do,
Right.
to be independent. And that, this whole thing is really based on my having been a TEACCH therapist and learning everything that I did learn through TEACCH and through the trainings and my work with this autistic population. So so whenever we're ready to go, I can, and I really want it to be like a back and forth if we can, so everybody feel comfortable to
We can give it a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. I told parents 3.
Right. I'm gonna move this back because I don't know what everybody else can see, but I'm sitting. I'll get it set up as best I can. You might be
Rebecca, if I go blank, it's because I have someone stopping in.
Tell me when.
And
But
if I go blank, it's because I'm getting old.
Tell me.
There you go. That's good. That's a good
Yeah,
view.
that's pretty.
That's a good vantage point.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Oh, what a time. We are.
And I did tell my parents that they don't have to have a child with autism for these to be successful. They can work for all of our kiddos with special needs.
We have, we've been in business over 20 years, and we have sold, I mean, cognitively, the tasks are from like 12 months. We had our grandson trying a lot of them out when he was like 15 months old, just, as they were being developed. And so they go from like 12, 15 months to 22, 24 months. So anybody who goes through those everybody goes through that age time. So they're really, appropriate for that.
A lot of the kids that come to us are coming to us, we're their first teachers, and they haven't yet learned how to sit and complete a task or complete a play activity. So that's what we're teaching them on the daily, huh?
Yeah, and I understand that. So you don't want the activities to be so challenging in the beginning. You want them to be able to see and really be successful. And because the one thing is really, and parents, I felt the one thing with TEACCH was the emphasis on working closely with parents, because parents know their child best of all. And then as professionals, we can understand autism. So working together, we can create ways for that child to excel through whatever unique kinds of structure they may require or need, and really we can appeal to their interests and their strengths. So we about ready to go, or okay. Hi.
Should we go ahead and mute all of ourselves so we don't hear doorbells and dogs?
I honestly, I'm really new at this. This is first go for me, so I'm learning. and I may not get it completely right, but I'll try. And I really, I don't know about muting, because I really, as questions arise, it may be better to just jump in and ask them when that's happening, you know, when you get a question. Because I don't have a real pre-planned, I have ideas that I want to present, but we can go in many different directions because we're dealing with kids that are, you know, have many different strengths and interests and so forth. So, so let me know when. Should I go, Rebecca? Or
Let's get started. If people come in and they have questions, I'm sure that they'll feel comfortable.
Well, I'm Ron Larsen. My wife here is Linda.
I'm kind of just helping.
And I came up with this idea for ShoeboxTasks over 20 years ago, and it had since developed into a business, which I'm sitting within that business now. And it wouldn't have become a business without Linda, because you know, the person with the idea doesn't always have the wherewithal to really do the numbers and stuff together. So so we've worked together really on this. But it really came about, and I just want to do a little background before I get into it. But at TEACCH, we would do sessions, home sessions for kids. So a family would come in, child would get diagnosed with autism, and which is, you know, devastating at that point, you know, and the family is really struggling to find out ways of working with their child. So we would give sessions at that point, and go in, and the parent would look from a one-way mirror into, say, myself and the child, and I would develop activities, and we would work together, and we would set up what was called a home session for that child. And there was one child in particular that I tried for 30 minutes, and it was, I could not get him to do anything. And I had, as soon as I would put a container down, or he was so quick, he'd pick it up, and that became the object of what he was interested in. So I couldn't even set up the activities that I had. So it was during that week, because I was going to see him the next week, and I told the family, you know, it didn't look good, but I learned a lot, and you know, come back next week and we'll try other things. And during that week, I just came up with, because the challenge was, I was putting things out just in disparate ways, separate, and so the whole design of what I was doing was confusing to the child. And he was going as best he could at whatever I was presenting, but I was trying to get 2 containers out there, but he would grab the one as soon as I put it out there. So I took a box, and a cardboard box, and I just depressed a container, and I took blocks, and the reason I put it on Velcro is so that by design the child would go for one at a time. So because what may happen sometimes is, if these were in a container and the child reaches in and takes them, then this could become the whole object of his focus because of the sensory feel of that. So you have children that it's very helpful to be able to, by design of what you present, you can just separate things out so that, and then by example, you can show the child just play, you know, one at a time like this, just demonstrate. Now, a couple of things for the kids. It may be too much to have 8 blocks out here when you're starting out. You may go with 3 or 2. And why do we have something as simple as putting blocks in a container? Well, for young kids, 3 years old, 4 years old, they're attracted to objects. And a teacher and a student have a relationship. So a teacher, by nature, is giving a challenge to their student, giving them a problem to solve. The student works on it and gives it back to the teacher. So there's this exchange that happens. So in the very beginning, you're using objects which are attractive to a young child, and you're having an exchange. You're putting this in front of them, and then by design, and one thing we've noticed with kids with autism is they're very visual. So if they can see it, they can often do it. So really by design, then you're, as simple as it may be, it is a complete interaction between the adult, in this case a parent, and their child. And the completion itself can be very rewarding for that child. So that's one thing about the design of the activities. I want to go back a little bit, because when you set up a place in the home, there are a couple of elements that are advantageous. First of all, you need a table. Ideally, a table that's not in a highly trafficked area, so there's not a lot going on around that area, so that you can have a bit of quiet time. And if a table is not available, you can, if you had a piece of cloth, the cloth, like a blue tablecloth you could put on, that would designate, okay, it's time to come and work, you know? Or you would just use that table and bring your child to that table and indicate that, you know, it's time for us to have our one-on-one time. And it doesn't have to be, I don't mean to bounce all around, but as things come to me, I'm going to throw it out there. The thing with being in school is you have a routine, a structure, and now being home, you're out of the routine, out of the structure. So it's likely that there are going to be a lot more challenges because there's a lot more downtime. So being able to have routine times, maybe several times a day, where you can have this table time with your child. And the basic setup would be, and now assuming I'm the child, okay? So I'm sitting here and I'm working. I'm going to build in some routines for this child, because as we observe children with autism, if we don't help them, we can help them with routine ways of doing things, because if not, they'll develop their own routines often about doing stuff. And their own routines may not really be the most harmonious, you know, for the parent and the child. So here we are introducing left to right. So I'm the child, I'm sitting at a table, and I can see to my left, which it's not real clear, but there are 3 activities that I have here. So 1, 2, 3. And being very visual, I can see how much work I'm going to do. Now, there are 4 questions that TEACCH came up with over the years that we find are very critical, no matter where you are. You could be on a basketball court, or that if you're setting up an activity, it would be important to keep these questions in mind. First of all, what is the work, or what is the activity I'm to do? So here we can literally see there are 3 activities I'm supposed to do, right? What do I have to do? So what do I have to do? Sometimes it's modeling what has to be done. You demonstrate it. Sometimes it's real clear what has to be done. Here we have a container with pegs in it, and here's these empty vials. And there are 9 vials and 9 pegs. So visually, it's very clear what has to be done. And then when am I finished? Well, what happened right here was when all the blocks were in the container, I was finished. okay? And then it's important to have a place for the finished work to go. So I have a basket right here to my right. So it's flowing left to right. I've done the activity, and then it goes in a basket. And then it's out of sight and out of mind. So then, and what's next? And I'll jump over here because here's red buttons in water. And this is often a highly motivating activity. So what it is, and I'm having it in the corner because I'm going to become the politician now. I'm going to be negotiating with my child. He's going to maybe want this. But what I'm going to do is, no. First, we do work, and then we get to do what you really want to do. And it's not unlike us working for money. Sometimes we do things we don't really want to do, but we do it, and then we get the reward. So it's a setup where I can still see what's going to be next. The what's next, it can be a picture of the computer. It can be something that's highly motivating to that child. So that you're building in this motivation for them to do this work. And when we do this work, we're reinforcing a very a routine that's going on in our classroom. And again, it may not be that it's necessary to teach new skills at that point. You can do that, but I think it's very important to just keep a structured system in place so that with all the free time they may have and the downtime, which can often lead to challenges for the child, for the parent, here you're providing a structure. And I've found in my workplace that we have adults that are nonverbal, have lots of sensory issues, and cannot really tell us when they're having a bad day. But they show us. They show us often with, I'm thinking of one person in particular, he'll get he'll make sounds, he'll get anxious, but sometimes things will happen before he gets here that have set him off a little bit, maybe something out of his routine. And yet when he gets on his workstation, and it's set up similarly, and he starts getting into the rhythm of his work, it's very calming because he knows the expectations. He understands the system and what's coming at him and how to do it, and being successful with it, like any of us with success, breeds a certain self-satisfaction and a comfort level. And it has a ripple effect. So being able to have these sessions within your day with your child can really make a huge difference, you know, that I believe it would. So here's the setup again. We've already put one task in the basket. Then the next task is brought across, and the child will put the pegs in. I'll just demonstrate. So, and you want to have it so that that task gets finished. When he's finished with that, and in this particular one, you really can't put the two in one container. It's self-correcting in that way. So so you have to do it. And yet you'll find, and the kids being unique and individual, you'll have the child that's very systematic and will go a certain way each time. Then you'll have others that'll be more random in that way. So you'll see the personalities of these kids come out during work such as this. So it goes in the finished basket, the third, and he may be reaching for this, but you have to kind of insist. If 3 activities are too much before he can get his favorite activity, you may go to 2 or 1 initially, and then slowly build up. When this was first developed, I was a teach therapist. We were doing a training in Texas, and as trainers, we would create activities for kids based on paperwork that we got on them over the weekend. And then come Monday, we would be able to try what we put together with the child that we were working with for that week. Well, another therapist had a child that wouldn't do anything, but we knew he liked water. And so I looked at the materials, and I was totally into these shoe boxes at the time. So my head was like, everything was being converted into the shoebox design. So what I see at the material table that the school had supplied us, a tennis ball container, you know, the clear plastic ones that hold 3 tennis balls with the lid, the black lid. And there was a whole thing of buttons. And then there was some cardboard shoe boxes. So initially, I just put it together similar to this. And I put the buttons on edge so that they would be more easily grasped. Okay, just slit in the top of the shoebox. And then what happened was the kid, it was demonstrated, and this child just looked at this button go down, and then he wanted to do it, which he did. He finished the whole, you know, I don't know, it might have been 9 buttons. But then what happened during the course of the week, he liked this activity so much that the person working with him was able to put it off to the side, like we're doing here, keep it out of arm's reach, and give him a task that he initially refused to do. Well, he would then do it, and to get the button task back again, to do that, because he liked it so much. So it was negotiating, but it was benefiting the student despite himself, so to speak. So by the end of the week, he was doing 4 or 5 activities and then getting the red buttons. Oh, yeah, and that's, so, yeah. Linda was just pointing out that we always try to avoid using food as the motivator, but find activities that are like even the trampoline would be an activity, or if the child is real sensory driven, it could be thread. It could be just having a ball of thread that they get to use, and then you could have a timer, and you could set the timer for like 5 minutes. You get 5 minutes of being able to have your sensory, you know, whatever sensory needs you're filling with that thread, be able to do that. So it's observing the child, seeing what they gravitate to on their own, and then kind of using that to their advantage. That's always, it's always seemed to work. And nothing, rarely do things work the first time you even try it, you know? So you try something, you then go back, okay, where'd the child get hung up? What can I redesign now? How can I change it a little bit? Where did he need help? Because again, I'm always thinking, how can this child be independent doing this? Even though I'm working one-on-one, you know, where did I have to help him out a little bit, or her out? And how can I maybe think about designing that a little bit differently so that I won't have to help out at that point next time? So it's, and there's a lot of variables. I'd like to pause here. And again, the colors, again, if I had done this, I would have put this away, just have to clean this up a little bit, and then the child would get the red buttons and water. But in a very basic way, this is a setup. It employs the left to right. It employs the 4 questions. What is the work? How much work do we do? And what's next? You know, and it's clean, it's logical, and I think and it's easily understood by a lot of the kids that we work with, or that you have in your home. Somebody have any questions about this at this point, or like to share anything?
I'll share. I'm one of the teachers. I know that a lot of parents may not have exactly that size shoebox. So what I have been doing is saving my containers that my chicken salad comes in.
Right.
And I take a knife and I make like a opening. And then I have been finding just random things around my house, like a little styrofoam ball, pom-poms,
Right.
anything, buttons.
There you go.
Anything. So anything you can find around your house, like a little wooden spool. I don't even know what it is, but, and then they also like to hear it too.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have the visual, like you said, they see what they have to do, and then there they go. So you can use anything, and this is chicken bouillon cubes.
Exactly.
My husband has been very good with the drill. So he does a lot of drilling for me, and these I do like little short straws.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's excellent. I mean, we'll take a walk around the shop here to see the different tasks. And I think the one thing I would encourage, there's, if we look at this one, if we have blocks, let's see, maybe Lynn, you could just angle that down a little bit. I think one thing is, and this is what I was running into early on with this kid that kind of inspired some of these, putting the blocks out on the table, this may not afford enough visual structure for it to be understood by the child. But if you had even the soda, those cardboard containers that, you know, the soda cans come in, well, not six pack. No, this is more by the case, not case. I don't know. Anyway, a tray, some type of tray.
Even a cookie sheet you can use.
Cookie sheet. Okay, that would give it enough boundary, I think, right now for that child to be able to. Just that little difference can mean the difference between success and failure. So being able to have blocks around the house. Let's see, let's take a walk. Oh, the other thing is I have these folders. So if you have folders, you can cut out pictures. In this case, it's these are numbers, matching numbers, okay? So it's a simple folder, but you could write numbers on a sheet of paper, and you could different ways of just affixing them. But being able to match numbers, being able to colors, match colors, okay.
And they're like this because they're reusable and washable for a classroom.
Well, these are, yeah, but when you're at home, you know, you could take Scotch tape, you could tape over the images just to give them a little more durability. Here's some shapes. And then what I would encourage, if your child is not interested, you find out, okay, what does he like? Trains? Does he like weather? Does he like, there's some standard kinds of things that these kids really get into. Well, then I would get pictures of those, whatever that might be, matching pictures, and you can create matches with that. You know, you could have a lightning bolt and a lightning bolt and match the two together, or wind and wind, and you know, and whatever that interest might be, I would really go with it to create something that could be. It's so much of doing these things has to do with the child being motivated to do it. Like even coming to work, to come to the work table, if you're having trouble, to have that activity, maybe the red buttons in water or whatever it might be, to come to that table and do that first, so that then they're there, then you can put it aside and do a few other things, and you can have fun. You can have fun with it. The color thing, you can get into language. You know, when you're matching colors, as you're matching, if you could, if the child does not know the word, is not verbal, you could just model red and match it. Modeling yellow and then matching it. So having the words be concise, be very meaningful, but not a lot of words. Okay, keep it really short, concise, and then the labeling. So you can be doing labeling with a lot of these objects as the child is doing the work to help to model that language, because it's often a mystery, the language. You know, as to when it might come about. So let's take a walk around the shop. Are there any other questions right now? Because there are variations on this too. So, you know, not knowing exactly where your child is at ability-wise, I'll leave you with, at the end of this, my address, email address that you can write to if there are specifics that I could help with. But let's go around. Let's just look at things and just consider these as models, okay?
Tell me if you can see though.
Yeah. Now this is, again, blocks. No, bring it in closer. Yeah, we can just focus on this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but here's the slit. Now putting a slit in the top, just as Elizabeth? Yeah. As you were saying, you could put the square hole like here, or you could put a slit, and it's a salad container, but the slit requires a little more, you know, dexterity with the fingers in that.
And you're working those fine motor skills.
Working the fine motor skills, exactly. And here's, you know, you could, I'm trying to think, you know, poker chips. You have poker chips, you know, poker chips again. And the same principle with a salad container. It could be on that tray. It doesn't have to be like this. They could be down, and again, how your child responds is how you would then redesign it or redo it the next time. No, here's the table that our workers do. So it's a very similar thing. Initially setting where to set all the loose materials. The jig is kind of a picture of what materials go in the bags, which are here. And then so our workers are working essentially left to right. It's the same principles. It's just done on a bigger scale than the shoeboxes themselves. Clothespins. Clothespins, you know, just in this case, you're taking the clothespins off and you're dropping them in a hole. Well, if you had a box, you could flip the box over, or you could, different ways. I'm talking cardboard. You could just have them along the edge of the cardboard. But again, it's a simple thing, and pulling off and then just dropping in. And the noise could also be very
Reinforcing. Yep.
reinforcement, exactly. Beads and blocks on pipe cleaner. Could be string. You know, you could shoelace and beads. Dowels. I mean, you could use unsharpened pencils for dowels. Or here's another one with the clothespins and cards. Okay, and this is self-correcting. So you have a clothespin. It only goes in here. It doesn't go here. So it's a precursor to sorting. So by its design, you're forcing a sort. Let's see. If you have, this is the spools again, and this becomes pull apart and put in. Okay, so if you have spools, it does require Velcro, but you could, if you had that tack and stick, if you had, what other sticky stuff is there? I don't know, but you could get there's got to be other things that you could be able to just pull apart and then and put in. Here's, well, those probably wouldn't be around the house, but it's another type of design where these loctagons are pulled apart and put in. And then, let's see, if you have Duplos or Legos, you can make stacks. You can, you could literally just stack them together. It'd be a little more difficult freeform, but if you could attach the first one to the box or to a surface and had loose ones, then you could just have your child build upon that. Cups, you can use cups to stack. So if you had a box, cardboard box, and you had one cup, and then you had these other cups, that's loosely, like just loose here, then it's a simple stacking. Again, I think the important thing is to have, needn't be a shoebox, but I would give it some definition so that there's some boundary, and then you can demonstrate, and then they would have access to that material. Again, beads on a dowel, setting a dowel into a cardboard box and having beads to stack. These you may not have. These are pegs that stack. Sorting. So you have 4 possible choices here. The first one is just sorting the wooden nickels and the balls, but you could do a 4-way. When you're not, to really eliminate confusion, you just cover the ones that are not being used, so that the child's only having to deal with what he sees. Otherwise, if you had this open, he might get stuck. Well, what goes there? So you just eliminate it by not having,
or add more.
or add a 3rd item or a 4th item in that case. Let's see. Get into quantity, again with dowels and beads that stack. So 1 bead, 2 beads, 3 beads would go on here, 4, 5. Here's, again, you can dictate how these Duplos go together by designating. You could use a yellow crayon. And okay, so the yellow goes where the yellow crayon is marked, the blue crayon, the blue, and the red, if you have these available. Then you can demonstrate top to bottom in a routine way, putting them together. Then you have a place to put them. So it's a complete activity, but you have a place. You're dictating the order by the match, putting it together, and then a place to finish.
Each one is accompanied with a jig, just say, not that we have to go into it.
Well, yeah, an aside that Linda was pointing out is for each of these, because we have the autistic individuals hacking and working for us, they use these jigs or visual instructions to bag things, and then we ship them out. And well, this is a lot of. This is again, it's crossing the midline. So you're coming this way, and then you're going this way, and you have a lot of structure here because there's a track that this bead goes on. And I have seen where some kids will come this far and then they'll pick it up with their other hand and go the rest of the way. So the midline can be sometimes a very challenging place for a child to be flexible, to be able to take that hand and go across that midline and use it, because they're limited in how they use their hands then. Again, a place, hardware and a shoelace, but creating kind of a pattern going through these eye bolts, and then in the very end, having a place where that end of the shoelace goes to finish it off.
Any threading thing would be good.
Yeah, a threading thing you could create out of cardboard. You could punch holes in it and have that child thread through those holes, create a pattern like, you know, a crisscross, or you could do different things with that. These are pipettes from hospital, and it's simply, there's a container under here. It's dried up now, but you squeeze, the colored water would float up, and then it's just moving it. So if you have a baster at home,
Or an eye drop.
or an eye drop, yeah, great. You could just do the same. You could put some colored dye in the water and move it to another container, and work with it that way. This is Flex 2, but we don't have an example right now. Matching colored coins. You know, just, you could have, let's see, what would be around the house, or anyway, different colored
Bottle tops, maybe.
bottle tops.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe something that's round. You could even cut out round paper and color it. Magic markers or crayons, color it different colors, but creating not only matches, what colors go together, but patterns where you might have blue, red.
They would probably have the lids to the applesauce, the squeeze packs that a lot of the kids are, yogurt and applesauce lids.
Yeah, okay.
Those are all different colors. We say you can lace those too.
Okay, well, there you
Yeah.
go. Perfect. If you have an oil drum at home,
Nope.
Dad has an oil drum and some beads, you can
Oh.
make a
This
kind of
is
a
the
motivator.
favorite activity in my classroom. I wrote a grant for this one, and the kids in my classroom love it. They call it the apple game.
Can you buy that at like Lowe's? One of
This
those
we
things?
get from a supplier.
Auto store, though.
Auto supplies would have it.
Okay.
We used to have a black one that was more lower and
I
rounder.
bet they do love that.
And yeah, but yeah, sure, you can get them from auto parts stores. If you have tongues, you can move cotton balls. You know, color the cotton balls, or just have them be white. Move them from one container to another. You know, but again, fine motor and a structured way of using them. Any kinds of containers with other cotton balls you can put in, and then and these are film, you know, for sending you know, little rolled up paper or whatever. But this turning, you know, again, for a little hand.
A little jar, though, would work.
A jar would work. A jar would work. So you could have small jars. You could have the cotton balls, and you could put them in the jar. Put one in, and then turn the cover on, and then have a place to put it. You know, patterns, and it's beads, and in this case, pipe cleaners. But you can use shoelaces. We have these beautiful red shoelaces to use, but that requires beads. Stretchies. I'm thinking of hair. What do you call them? Hair. What do women use?
What are those called? Rubber band or
Yeah. Anyway, you could have a couple of dowels. You could
scrunchy? Yeah, scrunchy.
and then just be.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
See, like so. Let's see. That's pretty specific.
The variation is really different, and you know, because using things in different ways.
Yeah. The other thing, you know, and the kids, again, you might see the one child who uses blocks the same way every time, just lines them up like a train. Or this activity was as much for the teachers as for the students, to show that objects can be used in different ways. And so if you have a child that is just a stacker of blocks, you can over time begin to change that, introduce other patterns. And I could help with that, but it gets into too much detail right now. But to be aware of that, and to be aware of slowly teaching more flexibility for your child, to be more flexible. Magnets, you know, in this case, we're just moving through a tube, going the wrong way, and then putting on a dowel. But if you have magnets, you could have washers from the shop, you know, washers that you use with screws. You can remove the washers with a magnet, placing them on a dowel, or I don't know, it depends on what you have around in terms of that. What else? We'll go back. Yeah.
Oh, there's the letter shapes and numbers.
Yeah, letter shapes and numbers. We showed you the colors, but the activity also has shapes which you could create again out of the yogurt tops, and it's a simple match as the colors were on that other activity, the numbers and letters. Yeah, I think that's something anyway. That there's also, you could go on our website, www.shoeboxtasks.com, and there are pictures of each of these activities, and it may spur other ideas that you could then put to use. But the pictures, you know, if you have materials, I had one mom years ago, the blocks on the Velcro well, this kid loved batteries, and it might not have been the most safest thing around, but she had the Velcroed batteries on the Velcro strip, and he loved the activity because he would just take them off. And so a lot of times it's modifying these, you know, in ways that, again, introducing your child's interests, and because that's what's motivating at this point, especially young children. They're motivated by what they like, what attracts them, and it's not always what we have in mind. So being able to make whatever we have in mind attractive to them is the challenge, and we can do that by using those interests that they have. You know, if it's let's see. Well, I can't. Nothing's coming to mind right now. But so, any questions yet? Anybody? Or
No, that was awesome. Can we have a field trip there?
of course you can. Are you in Charlotte?
Yes. The 3 teachers. Yeah, we're all in Charlotte. Yes.
Yeah, it's not that far away. So,
No, I would drive there to get ideas.
well, that's you know, a lot of people have contributed with ideas, and it's not. No one has a market on that. You know, we need to work together, and yeah, I mean, I'm open to doing a workshop of sorts, but whatever.
I just want to make sure that I didn't mute everyone accidentally when I set this up. And so if people have questions, that they can ask it, and it's not me not
I
being
can unmute myself. We can unmute ourselves.
Okay, just making sure that I set that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suspect everybody could hear me.
Yes.
Otherwise, yeah.
So
Whatever.
as far as my parents are concerned, if you guys or all the parents are concerned, I'm sure that if you have a question or a particular, you know, thing that you might want to know, I'm sure that 4 other of you are thinking the same thing. So I don't want you to feel, or if you don't want to ask it out loud, if you want to do it in the chat, you know,
Right.
because obviously Ron has a wealth of information and knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, and I apologize. I mean, there is a lot, you know, and I may have bounced around a lot. I didn't mean to be confusing or anything. So
No,
questions.
No.
this is wonderful.
I think the bottom line you focused on was that find what their interests are, make the task, you know, relevant to them, make them, I mean, you can even start with one task at a time and build up, and then having that reward
Yeah.
preferred item afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I may have the wrong language.
No, you don't. I have the wrong language. I always have the wrong language. It's preferred object.
But yeah, the interests are so important. Observing, I mean, parents know their children. They know them, and you observe them, and to see what they naturally gravitate to, and then to be thinking about how can I use that interest in a more constructive, in a way where I can bring it to the table. We can have a session around it.
Yeah, and ultimately it's teaching our children to work independently.
Independence, yeah. I mean, I worked last 2 years at TEACCH. I was in the preschool,
Yeah.
and it was remarkable how at times, because I had a preschool of so-called normally developing kids here in Asheville before I joined TEACCH, and there were times where I could just step back, and the classroom was running beautifully because these kids knew where to go, when to go. They knew the work, what to do. They had all these questions. The 4 questions were answered. And of course, there were times where Tommy would throw himself down on the floor, and you'd have to figure out, you know, how to get him to his work. And because he liked to eat, it made sense that you put his work right before lunch. So he was really highly motivated to finish his work so he could get over to lunch.
Well, see, I always said we have to be smarter than the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old.
Yes.
Because they're very smart. And I like the visuals too. So I know it's hard at home to be very structured, but a tray or the cookie sheet or a lid of some sort is so beneficial. Or even taking painter's tape. I have painter's tape across my tables at school. You can make a big X on your table and they can stay within that. I mean, X, square on your table.
And the other thing with that is it takes the personal out of it as well, because you can refer to the boundary, or, you know, well, this is your space, or, you know, and it's not me telling the child, you know, you have to be in your space, you know, so it is, the visuals really are very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that a lot of times my parents have questions about, well, what if my child doesn't necessarily want to work, or how do I get them to initiate, or what if they pick up all the materials and throw them? So maybe you could answer some of those questions of, you know, if they don't want to initially do it, or if when something goes wrong.
Right. It's challenging, for one thing. I would really look closely at a number of factors. I mean, is it happening all the time? Is it happening when is it happening? And at what exactly is initiating that behavior? Is setting that child off? Is it time for work? Is it the word work, or, you know, just that word is like, well, then I would look at, well, maybe I have to make work more fun in the very beginning. So what does my child like to do? Well, loves to jump on the trampoline, or, you know, well, watching, doing the computer is a little difficult. but it's somehow setting up a situation where you can bring that child over to the table with their preferred activity initially, and once there, you can then begin to maybe have a timer so that they do it for a certain amount of time. You know, we're in the realm of trying and then observing and then restructuring or retrying. The absolute, like this kid I was referring to, who would throw himself down, just really didn't want to be in work. He didn't want to go to that work table. That table was not fun. So we took, he liked red buttons and water. We would go over to him and hand him that. He would bring it to the table. He would do it. And then, and again, because of the time of day, eating was next, and he would be then motivated to finish the other activities we had there. So sometimes it's the timing of the day, what's following it, being able to convey, and that's the other point, being able to convey in some way that first we're doing this and then we're doing another activity. So the child loves the computer. Well, first we do one activity, then we do the computer. But being able to convey that with either pictures, some way that child, in a way that child understands the two events. You may have the computer nearby, you have the activity. So you can easily then say first this, then the computer. So it's a first then situation. You know, there's setting that up, there's the interests, you know, and then consistency, being consistent, not, even if it's reducing things down to a very, very small scale, so that's just one block that gets put in, and then he gets to do something that he really wants to do, or she. So you can play with the amount of work that you're doing. Is some of it really fun? Do they need to have that fun be the first thing that they do, and then work towards something else that's fun? It gets tricky when you go will to will. You're just not going to win. You know, it's you have to avoid really just, gosh,
And that power struggle.
a power struggle. Yeah, thank you. Because that, first of all, I don't think it accomplishes anything in the long run. You know, I think it's much better to negotiate, give choice, because choice especially for the kid that is into power, choice empowers them, even though you're giving what the choices are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they feel empowered, but they're oh, I can do this or this. That's the other point that you could do is in resisting work. Well, give them the choice, perhaps, of a couple of different activities. But I would be careful with that, because that could get out of hand real quick.
Well, and I think it's important not to give up after the first or second or third time. Just continue it, and they'll learn. They'll learn.
Consistency. That's the consistency. Yeah. And you know, and think of yourself as with the child as learning. I mean, you know, it's not a set deal. You know, we're all learning in this, and we're trying to observe, and we're the adult, but at the same time, it's going to require flexibility. It's going to require creativity, and this not seeing the child as just being willful. I had a case where I consulted in Yancey County to a kid that he was a fifth grader, and he was refusing to do his. He was not going to do division. He's flat refusing to learn division. It made no sense to him. It was illogical in his mind, and that was it. And the teacher was saying, you know, he's just being willful about this. He's just not going to do it. He doesn't want to do it. And I really didn't see it as him being willful, but being on the autism spectrum, where he had it in his mind that he was just not going to do that, but because it didn't make sense to him. So what we ended up doing was talking about where he lived. He lived on a farm, and we worked it out where he could figure out how many eggs he would get by dividing the number of chickens by, I forget the exact thing we did, but we used division to figure out how many eggs the farmer would get. And he went, oh, I get it. You know, and once it
You
made,
used something that was in his world.
yeah, and once it made sense, he was okay with it. And then he went ahead and he learned it. You know, he was open to it. So a lot of times it's kind of have to get in their head what makes sense to them, even if it doesn't make so much sense to us at the time. Yeah, I hope that's something. You know, it's there's so many variables with that. I would, if there were specifics, we could try. And again, it's a lot of trial, and it's a this whole workshop didn't develop overnight. It was, you know, we would look, and sometimes with the one activity with tape, it was just getting the length of the tape on the table was one thing, but then where's the center of the tape? So we put a little mark on the table, and the person could then put a little mark on the tape, and he had it then. Because being out open in space, it was hard to know how to tape the containers together. So sometimes it's very simple adjustment, you know, a visual one. But visual strength, the routines, so the routine of the work time, and if they know then that play is going to follow, and it's something they really enjoy, but it's not going to happen until they do a few activities, that's going to be helpful. And then incorporating interests into your work session, whatever those interests might be, and thinking about those 4 questions. This is even on a basketball court, or, you know, what is this thing I'm supposed to do, and what do I have to do? What am I doing? How do I do it? And then how many shots do I take? I take 5 basketball shots. And then what's next? I go on to another activity. So those 4 questions can be in a very abstract setting, and they can really be helpful if you can have it so that they understand the answers to those 4 questions. But make it fun, and be persistent. And again, if there are specifics, it's Ron at ShoeboxTasks.com, RON at ShoeboxTasks.com, and I'm really happy to respond to anybody. It's Ron at ShoeboxTasks.
Did I type that right in the comment box?
I'm sorry?
Did I type it right in the comment box? I put it in the comment box.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
I was doing it off of memory too.
All right. Anything else?
This was so amazing. I can't even express my thank you to taking the time of doing this for us. It was,
you know, if you have, I think it's selfish if one doesn't share what one knows, if it can be helpful.
Absolutely, yes.
Some way, you know, and perhaps it's one or 2 things you can take from this, or it's a little difficult in this format, you know, because you like to be with the people in a room. But hopefully, and I think you said you have it recorded, or?
I did.
Okay.
Because I know a couple families that, you know, they're still working. And so if they're working in the hospital or they're working at supermarkets, or that they weren't able to attend, but they were really interested in the information.
Okay. And, you know, I'm open to other, again, you know, if there are specifics, these are the basics. There's lots of ways of modifying this as kids get older, or
And there's also a lot of things you can buy from the dollar store that you can use for this too.
yeah.
If you're making them at home with a coffee creamer can or a Parmesan cheese can or your bouillon cubes.
Exactly.
But
and
the
I
dollar
think
store has a lot of things.
And the important thing of that is, and I said it earlier, was that it's not so much what we consider it to be so simple or anything. It's the whole idea that I come to a table, I have this interaction with my mom or dad, and it's meaningful. I'm happy I can do this stuff. So it's a whole way of very positive way of being with your child.
Yes.
And the thing that it can lead to in the next phase is having an independent work table where, again, you're not as much involved in that process or at all.
And that makes moms and dads happy too.
Exactly. So even when you're working with your child, giving them the minimal amount of help when they're having to do whatever you put before them is helpful, because you're always trying to think, and this is going to play out big time later on in life when that child grows into a young adult, and independence, being able to be independent and do things is critical. It's for all of us, really.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All.
Thank you so much.
So appreciate it. Yeah.